Story 1. At university, I did not have my own printer. I had to swipe my student identification card to pay for any printing at the library. It charged about 10 cents per page. I would select the document name on the touchscreen, swipe my card, and the printer would print and charge my account. I discovered that if I gave my document a very long name, the computer did not know what to do with it. Instead of going to the queue, it bypassed the pay screen and printed. Story 2. This is not my story, but many years ago, a woman attended college in Texas and paid out-of-state tuition. She discovered that if you were a business owner in the state, you could qualify for in-state tuition. She spent a few dollars to register a business and saved a lot of money. Story 3. When parking at the hospital, the pay machine was not working, so I drove to the barrier and pressed the button to speak to the attendant or security. A few seconds later, without a word being exchanged, the barrier opened. This was early in my father's hospital stay of about 9 months. I did not try paying again. I simply pressed the button at the exit barrier. Story 4. Early in high school, I discovered that my physical education teacher graded on improvement. We took a skills test at the beginning of each unit and another at the end, and grades were based on how much we improved. I was not very athletic and had been getting C grades in the class, so I would tank the opening test and then perform my usual mediocrity at the end. Because my improvement was so great, I became an A student in physical education during my last semester of high school. Story 5. They catoned on pretty quickly, but a few years back I managed to purchase some buy one get one free meals from Tesco that were also yellow stickered. The system had not been updated to remove the offer, which meant I ended up effectively being paid to take the food home. I bought 2 ready meals that were originally priced at £2 each. Normally they would have cost £2 total with the buy one get one free offer, but since they were further reduced to about 40 pence each, the full promotion still applied. When they were scanned, the total came to 80 pence, and the system also refunded me £2. Story 6. The ball machine at the driving range would return your token and give you a bucket of balls if you applied enough backspin when inserting it, so I could go to the range for free whenever I wanted. Story 7. We discovered that on our country's largest takeout food website, if you go to the payment screen, click the browser back button instead of the website back button, enter a tip for the driver, and then proceed, you only pay the tip and the order is still delivered. We did this twice before the glitch was patched. Story 8. Free cable television. I once lived on a property in one of 2 houses that shared the same address and mailbox. One month I fell behind on my cable bill. The cable company came to disconnect my service, but disconnected my neighbor's service instead. My neighbors called to ask if my service was out. I said no. They were disappointed because a big football game they planned to watch was airing that day. A friend of theirs who worked for a different cable company was visiting and asked my permission to splice a cable between the 2 houses so they could get service from mine. I agreed. It took him about 20 minutes, and they were back in business in time to watch the game. Once I figured out the reason for the original disconnection, I explained it to my neighbors. They then stopped paying their cable bill on purpose. The cable company sent out a bucket truck, only to discover that their service was already disconnected, and left satisfied. We then had free cable in both houses for the next 3 years I lived there, with both of us officially disconnected. Story 9. Back when soda companies placed promotions under bottle caps, I could tilt the bottles just right to find winners. During many promotions, I paid for one initial bottle, found a winning cap for a free bottle, and continued searching so I never had to pay for soda again. Story 10. I have 2 loopholes that I routinely exploit at work and recommend to my employees, though none have the discipline. They let me take 1 month of vacation each year instead of 2 weeks. Loophole 1. All overtime is matched with paid time off. Loophole 2. Clocking in 5 minutes early and clocking out 5 minutes late counts as overtime and does not require manager approval. By clocking in 5 minutes early to start my shift, leaving 5 minutes late for lunch, returning 5 minutes early from lunch, and clocking out 5 minutes late at the end of the shift, I earned 20 minutes of paid overtime and 20 minutes of paid time off each day I worked. Each year we receive 80 hours of paid time off, but with this scheme I get an extra 83 hours and 20 minutes. That does not include any additional paid time off I received when asked to work overtime. Story 11. I have over 26 gigabytes of free storage in my Dropbox account. Not sure if it still works this way, but about 15 years ago, they gave you 500 megabytes of space for each sign-up you referred, up to 50 referrals, or maybe it was 1 gigabyte and about 25 referrals. They had to actually install and activate the client for you to get the credit. I set up a small Linux virtual machine and created a restore point containing only a browser and an unactivated Dropbox client. Then I used several throwaway email addresses to submit a large number of referrals. For each one, I would boot the virtual machine, process the next referral, then shut the virtual machine down and change its MAC address. I repeated this process. As long as the MAC address changed, Dropbox treated each one as a separate device. I could have automated the process, but I did it manually and completed the referrals in an evening while watching basketball. It took a couple of hours total. Story 12. In college, the local Buffalo Wild Wings gave out 6 free wings if you completed their online survey. I discovered they did not limit how many times you could do it, and I happened to work when the cafeteria was open for Sunday dinner. I ate there almost every Sunday because I could get 6 free wings and another item. I was very disappointed when I returned the next year and the deal was gone. Story 13. Although this is no longer relevant, it saved me hundreds and probably thousands of dollars. In 1998, I bought a digital cell phone from American Telephone and Telegraph that only had 90 minutes of talk time per month. The store representative told me that to save minutes, I could forward my number to my home phone and I would not be charged for minutes. I asked what would happen if I forwarded to a different area code, and he told me there would still be no charge. In the 1990s, long distance was very expensive by the minute. I discovered that I could call my girlfriend, who lived an hour away and was technically long distance, by forwarding my number to her number and calling my own cell phone. There was no charge for that talk time because it was a local call for me. I would receive 10-page phone bills that showed $0 for every one of those calls. I was 18 and we spoke every day. It did not cost me a dime. Story 14. A few years ago, before I could drive, I used to take the bus to work. I would spend about £80 every 4 weeks on a bus pass. When I bought the pass and the application on my phone, it remained inactive until I activated it, at which point it began its 4-week countdown. I figured out that if I bought a 4-week ticket and backed up my phone while it was unused, I could restore the backup after a month and have a new and used 4-week ticket. I did this for about 3 years and saved nearly £3,000. I am still happy about this. Story 15. There was a loophole on the McDonald's self-service screens where you could add a cheeseburger and remove all the toppings. The kiosk would refund a small amount for each topping, and you would end up with negative 10 cents. Do it about 50 times and you could get a free meal. We did it once or twice to get a free drink during the summer before they changed the system. Story 16. While working in a contact center for a large telephone company, I discovered that clicking the mouse rapidly caused the system to enter a mode that appeared to show an agent as available and waiting for calls, but no calls would be routed. One employee discovered the trick. It spread among staff and was kept from management. We shared it with new hires during onboarding if they were considered trustworthy. Story 17. This was unintentional but still a hilarious loophole. I wanted to cosplay Lois Lane at a local convention. I printed a Daily Planet press badge with a picture of the actress who played Lois Lane in the Smallville television show. I copied Lois's outfit from the Superman animated series and had a friend dressed as Jimmy Olsen. We went around interviewing cosplayers as a bit, which got a lot of chuckles, and we met some cool people. Some Detective Comics cosplayers even tracked us down for pictures. By accident, we walked past a panel room with a sign that said press only. A board staff member was by the door. When he saw us, he waved us in. We were giggling but decided to go in anyway. The panel room was where the convention guests and celebrities were answering press questions and promoting upcoming projects before doing meet and greets. We spent most of the day in that room listening to Peter Dinklage, Alan Tudyk, and others talk about what they were currently working on. We didn't ask questions because we didn't want to get caught, but it was a lot of fun. We would do it again. Story 18. I work at a well-known Australian alcohol store. Until very recently, the online store would mark down slabs of craft beer containing 24 bottles or cans from $60 to $70 down to $24. This only happened if you added 24 individual cans or bottles to your cart instead of a slab. A customer used Click and Collect to buy 24 individual bottles every week. The staff and I were not going to unbox a slab into 24 individual bottles, so we gave him a slab. Management reported the issue to head office several times over the years, but they did nothing. One day the man said the loophole had been closed. However, he could still use the reorder option and receive the same price he had been paying. The company makes billions in profit each year, so more power to him. Summary: unlimited $24 slabs of craft beer. Story 19. When I was a young ski bum, we discovered that phone operators counted the coins that went into the phone for long-distance calls to make sure the correct amount was paid. Quarters made one sound and dimes made another. We recorded $20 worth of quarters going into a payphone, with pauses at $5 increments so we could keep track, and played the tape whenever the operator told us how much the call would cost. It worked like a charm all winter. Our parents were quite impressed that we were not calling them collect. One of the guys in our cabin was from France. Story 20. I received a 10% off coupon code from a coffee company in a promotional email. I changed the 10 to a 40 when entering the code at checkout and have been getting 40% off coffee pods for the last year. Story 21. I bought a pie from the supermarket. The box included a token for a free pie. I went through checkout, removed the token, returned to get another pie, paid with the token, and repeated the process until my freezer was full of pies. Story 22. I used LimeWire to download LimeWire Pro when I was in high school. Story 23. In one town where I lived, parking tickets were cheaper than paying for parking, did not affect your license, and the area had a satellite office where I could pay the ticket immediately. It was not even common to get a ticket. Story 24. Edit. At work today, just on my break, and it happened again. It must have sensed me talking about it. There is a vending machine in the staff room at my job, and it's a complete asshole. Food often gets stuck, especially bags of chips. If this happens, the machine will automatically refund the money if you paid by card, so you can buy another item, use it to knock the first one down, and end up with two for the price of one. The machine is for staff only, but none of the items are cheaper because of that. They are actually more expensive than the public machines. It has also taken many people's coins over the years, so I don't feel bad about occasionally getting a free bag of chips. Story 25. Are there any payphones around anymore? A long time ago, I was using a payphone during a blackout. The electricity came back on within 5 minutes, and the phone started dumping all the change into the coin return. I must have gotten $4 or $5, which in 1978 was worth a lot more. I promptly drove to every payphone I could find. It was a good day. Story 26. Pizza Hut recently had an exploitable deal in their application. They offered 2 items for $8 each with a requirement to buy 2. I noticed that after I selected the first item, a medium pizza, it was already in the cart. I completed checkout and the order went through. The loophole is now closed, but I likely saved tens of dollars over the past few years. Story 27. My brother and I cashed in on casino sign-up bonuses one summer. Basically, the casinos gave you a chunk of bonus cash when you signed up and deposited some money, hundreds of dollars. You could not withdraw this money until you had met certain gambling requirements. We did the bare minimum of gambling on whichever allowed game had the best odds, normally blackjack or a video poker variant. On average, we lost only a tiny fraction of the bonus, so we were ahead. Then we withdrew the money and moved on to the next casino. We hit hundreds. It was the best summer job ever. We later chatted online with a man who had discovered an even better loophole. One of the online payment companies, NetEller, was accepted by many casinos and allowed users to change account details at will. He found the best bonus and exploited it many times. Casino bonuses are terrible these days. The wagering requirements mean you will never be able to withdraw the bonus funds. Story 28. Arby's ran a promotion. If you signed up with your electronic mail address, they gave you a coupon for a free main item with no purchase required. I showed the cashier the coupon on my phone and they entered it. There was no unique code. It was valid for 3 months, so I got a free sandwich every day at work. On the last day, the cashier said they honor expired coupons. That's how I got completely sick of Arby's. Story 29. I used the iPod Nano exchange program with Apple to help pay for my first property. I sent them a first-generation Nano and they sent me the latest model in exchange, which I then sold. I repeated this with about 1,000 devices. Apple eventually blacklisted me. Story 30. It felt like a giant win for me. My favorite fast casual restaurant had a coupon at the bottom of its receipts for a free meal if you filled out the survey. I worked out the pattern of the code and used a new code each time. I received free meals twice a week for over a year. Story 31. I transferred credit card balances between balanced transfer cards until I had no balance. Each transfer pushed the payment due dates back, allowing me to save money and pay down my balances faster. Story 32. There was a loophole in Sweden for Libero diapers. The company sent coupons to new parents that could be used at self-checkout. You only had to scan the coupon and keep it. Each time we bought diapers, we could use almost every coupon we had, resulting in savings of 50 to 80% per purchase. It worked for about a year, I think, before they fixed it. Story 33. One of my former colleagues lost his parking ticket and discovered that the car park near our office charged £5 if you lost your ticket. Not in addition to the normal fee, but as a flat charge. The daily rate to park there from 9 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon was £9 or £10, from memory. After that, he parked on workdays and, when leaving, told the attendant he had lost his ticket, so he was charged only £5 instead of the higher daily rate. I never had the courage to try it. Story 34. I discovered a loophole for finding a job very quickly, especially for remote positions. Recruiters search for resumes on sites like Indeed, Dice, and ZipRecruiter. Much like optimizing a website for search engine optimization to appear first in Google search results, you can optimize your resume so it appears first when recruiters search for targeted job titles on these sites. I learned this from the sticky post on the computer science career hacking subreddit. Story 35. Cypriot pounds used to work in United Kingdom vending machines because they were the same size but had much lower value. This loophole ended when Cyprus adopted the euro. I also found that a low-value Nicaraguan coin is accepted as a 10-pence coin in United Kingdom vending machines. Story 36. In high school, a couple of friends and I discovered that you could purchase prepaid subscriber identity module cards, commonly called SIM cards, with more balance than they cost, and receive an additional $7 in cashback for each SIM card ordered. We used this extensively to fund our League of Legends skin collections. Eventually, the carrier blocked us from purchasing more SIM cards, but the cashback website we used still counted the purchases as valid and credited our accounts. After a few months and several $100s for each of us, the cashback website fixed the loophole. Nowadays, most websites take months to pay out cashback, probably rightfully so. Story 37. I live in a remote rural area. We do not get United Parcel Service packages delivered on Tuesdays or Thursdays. When I order from Amazon, it offers the option to choose Friday delivery with a coupon worth $1 to $2 for digital orders. I always choose that option because I am not getting a Tuesday or Thursday delivery anyway, so I stack the coupons and get a bunch of Kindle books for free. Story 38. When I was in high school in the 1970s, it cost a dime to make a local call. We discovered that if you put a nickel in the slot and pressed the return coin button at the right time, the coin was returned and we received a dial tone. Story 39. A kid was put on probation with me because he figured out the tokens from the local arcade were recognized as quarters at a bank's self-serve coin exchange machine. Story 40. Many inexpensive items under $10 on Amazon qualify for returnless returns, meaning if you start a return you are issued a refund and told that you do not need to return the item. Story 41. Our wedding registry offered a 20% discount on purchases for a period after the wedding and allowed shipping at our own pace. So we waited until after the honeymoon. When we returned, we discovered we could convert our gifts to registry cash and buy items at that discount. We had a substantial amount left to purchase other items. Story 42. This is an old-school, low-tech example from about 50 years ago. Soda vending machines held bottles loaded horizontally with the cap facing out. A pawl-like metal piece prevented a bottle from being removed until payment was inserted because the bottle was wider behind the pawl. Someone discovered they could use a glass and a bottle opener to remove the cap and pour the soda into the glass. Story 43. Back in the early 2000s, Seattle apartment buildings also rented parking. You paid a month's parking fee, made a deposit for a garage door opener, and that was it. There was no tag. Either you had the garage door clicker or you did not. There were no assigned spots for parking renters, so you parked in visitor sections. I moved around the city, so I would pay for parking for a month and keep the clickers, for going about $30 for each remote. I figured there was no way building managers would reprogram remotes for all residents every 6 months, so I would at least be able to keep parking for 6 months, which would save me $400 to $600. It turned out they did not reprogram remotes ever. I stayed in Seattle for 6 years and had free secure parking in at least 4 neighborhoods across the city. Story 44. After college, my roommate worked at a large search engine. The company gave employees free advertising space on its website, so we made advertisements asking people to sign up for Uber using our referral codes. We received $20 per sign up. We used Uber and Uber Eats for free for 1.5 years. I do not remember why we stopped, but it eventually stopped working. Story 45. When I park at the hospital, I insert the parking ticket into the machine to pay on arrival. You are supposed to pay when you leave, so this results in the lowest fee, often zero because the system assumes you entered by accident. So far it has worked every time. Story 46. Back before Spotify was a thing, I used Pandora. I was in college, so I had to use the free version with advertisements. My Android phone at the time was a couple of years old. Anytime an advertisement came on or I was out of skips and did not like the song, I could just gently tap my phone on something, and it would skip the advertisement. I discovered it one day when I was annoyed by an advertisement and set my phone down harder than usual. It worked for about a year until I got a new phone. I still do not know how. Story 47. Back in 2008, I had young kids and was an avid couponer. The store had a sale on Betty Crocker fruit stackers, a type of fruit snack. If you bought 5, you would get a $3 Catalina coupon good on your next order. I noticed some boxes had a separate promotion that included a $5 Discover gift card. I bought 5 boxes, received the Catalina coupon, and went home. When I opened them, 3 of the 5 boxes contained the $5 Discover gift cards. I noticed the winning boxes all had the same expiration date. Thinking boxes with that date might contain gift cards, I bought 5 more boxes with that date and won 5 more. To fund further purchases, I needed to activate the gift cards on the contest website. After activating a few, I realized using the same internet protocol address to activate multiple cards could look suspicious, so I called the toll-free phone number instead, blocking my number before each activation. I used Kroger gift cards to fund additional purchases. I drove to many stores over the next week. In the end, I netted $3,000, a lot of food, and enough fruit snacks to give to almost everyone I knew. Story 48. A marathon held a contest during March Madness in which correctly guessing the final 4 teams earned a free entry worth $300. The rules closed at 11:59 in the evening on the day of the games. I waited until the games were complete, returned, and posted the correct teams. They had serious reservations about whether that was legitimate, but they still granted me the entry. Story 49. My brother discovered that, at one point, McDonald's gave a free Big Mac when you bought a $50 gift card. Because you could buy a $50 gift card with another $50 gift card, he ended up with a couple of free burgers during the promotion. Story 50. I figured out that if you carry a clipboard and walk with purpose, almost no one questions why you are there. Story 51. In college, I discovered that if I left a balance under $10 on my credit card for more than a month, the issuer would perform a small balance wipeout. So every 2 months for years, I charged a purchase costing less than $10. Story 52. Back in the $1 menu days at McDonald's, getting 3 orders of 4-piece McNuggets at $1 each was about $1 cheaper than a 10-piece. Story 53. For a while, the McDonald's application buy 1 get 1 free breakfast sandwich promotion let you add 2 sandwiches. Then remove the paid one, allowing up to 3 free sandwiches in your cart. It only worked if you purchased something else, so I would add a salad dressing packet for 25 cents to get 3 free sandwiches. It worked for a couple of weeks until I told many people and they immediately fixed it. Story 54. In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, you can use a lance one-handed as long as you are mounted. If you take the dual-wielder feat, you can dual-wield any weapons that are not two-handed. Lances are unusual. They do not have the two-handed property and they do not count as heavy weapons, so you can dual-wield lances. Story 55. Not really a loophole, more of a semi-unethical life tip. Back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, I went to Las Vegas 3 or 4 times. I'm from Canada, and back then I carried traveler's checks. They were Visa branded and in Canadian currency. They looked identical to checks for United States currency, except they said Canadian under the denomination instead of United States. At a casino cash cage, I cashed one of my checks, and instead of converting it to United States dollars, they paid me at par. At the time, 1 Canadian dollar was worth about 0.77 United States dollars. I went back an hour later and cashed another. I received United States dollars. Then the teller said, "Wait, that is a Canadian check." She took the United States dollars back, converted the amount, and I received the lesser amount. I found I had about a 75% success rate with inattentive cash tellers. Story 56. When I had a Tesla, the garage at my apartment building raised prices, but only began charging after the first 4 hours. As long as I remembered, I would disconnect the charger and reconnect it just before the 4-hour mark. I had a full year of almost entirely free fuel. Story 57. I received $30,000 for free. Disclaimer: not in the United States. During my degree, I had a full university scholarship that completely waived my tuition fees, provided I maintained grades above a certain threshold. The scholarship was offered directly by the university based on my strong academic performance in a national exam. Separately, a government scholarship for students from low-income households was available. Because my family was not well off and I performed well on the national exam, I qualified. There was likely no coordination between that program and the university, so despite my tuition being covered, I applied and received $30,000 from the government scholarship, money I technically did not need because of my full university scholarship. That is how I ended up with $30,000 before I graduated. Story 58. Not the craziest thing, but back when Chipotle was being blamed for giving people Ebola and then norovirus around 2016, maybe they gave everyone a free burrito. The method they used was 1 burrito per phone number. I got an application that gave you burner phone numbers and kept using it to get free burritos. I paid $5 for 5 burner numbers at a time, so for each $5 I spent, I got 5 maxed out burritos. The real loophole is when you ask for double beans. Wait until they scoop the first round of beans before asking. That way, they cannot shortchange you on the second scoop or try to half and half their scoops. This last part is only relevant if you love beans as much as I do. Story 59. You can shop at Costco with a gift card. Here is the thing. Once employees realize the card has no balance, they have already obtained manager approval to override the membership requirement. They do not want to hold up the line or return the items, so they complete the sale. I have an empty card that I have been using for years. Story 60. The electronic ticketing system I use has a loophole. It measures distance between stations using the global positioning system. The cost is a base fee plus a fixed amount per kilometer. If I go to the city, it automatically detects when I return and starts a new fare. However, if I travel 1 station past my original starting point, it registers only a 1-station fare in that direction. This saves me approximately €6 on every trip with my child. Story 61. I worked at a bank that offered staff half-price credit cards. The standard interest rate was 18%, so my card charged 9%. Term deposits were paying 14%. I took out a cash advance with no charges for staff and put that money into a term deposit, earning 14% while paying back the credit card at 9%. I saved a lot of money. Story 62. I had a roommate in college who would book a plane ticket on the most popular flight he could find. He would take his books to the airport to study and wait for the airline to ask for volunteers to give up their seats in exchange for travel vouchers. He had a system. He would decline the first offer, volunteer on the next flight, and repeat this 3 to 5 times, collecting vouchers instead of flying. At the end of the day, he would go home, having turned a couple $100 ticket he never intended to use into thousands of dollars in travel vouchers. This was in the 1990s, so I would be surprised if it still worked today. Story 63. Back in the late 1990s, when dial-up internet was still the main option, I created a company over the summer to learn how to run a business and to be official. It was for odd jobs, yard work, cleaning, and maintenance. I opened a business internet account through Sprint. I paid about $25 per month for a dedicated dial-up line with unlimited hours. I shut the business down at the end of the summer when I returned for my senior year. I removed my payment method but never canceled the internet account and continued to use it, assuming it would be disconnected since the business no longer existed. I used that dial-up account for the next 3 years until I upgraded to digital subscriber line. Even stranger, a friend and I could log in with the same account at the same time and it worked. I never received any delinquent bills except for the first one sent to the business address, a post office box, which said I had missed a payment. That happened only once. Story 64. The city decided to impose a retroactive tax on certain businesses that had never been taxed before. Businesses had to pay tax on ticket prices. I discovered that the tax ordinance was worded poorly. It contained an off by 1 error. Tax was incurred on tickets less than 10 euros, between 11 and 15 euros, between 16 and 19 euros, and so on. Notice there was no tax between 10 and 11 euros, between 15 and 16 euros, and so on, in multiples of 5. Given the nasty way they did this retroactively and without warning, guess what ticket prices were suddenly changed to in the city? Multiples of 5 euros. Because of this, the mayor invited representatives for a discussion and decided to have the tax and to waive the tax for the first year so businesses could adjust prices to the new tax. Story 65. It is probably too late, but I will share mine anyway. About 5 years ago, my husband and I impulsively bought brand new Galaxy watches. We ended up with buyer's remorse, so we returned them the next day. About a week later, we unexpectedly received a small sum of money. When we went back to buy them again, the exact watches were on sale as an open box discount. We still joke about how we beat the system. Story 66. I used to bartend at Uno's. Every fall we sold gift cards for Christmas. For every $20 sold, we gave a $5 coupon that could be redeemed after the new year. I bought a gift card for myself, used it when customers paid cash, then kept recharging the gift card and accumulated all the extra $5 coupons. I spent $0 out of pocket on the gift card yet received about $1,000 in coupons every year. Story 67. I used to live in New York City and traveled frequently. I had a car in the city which I would not recommend. My wife and I discovered it was cheaper to park in a neighborhood in Queens outside John F. Kennedy International Airport, walk to the airport, get a parking ticket and pay it than to park at the airport for an extended period. Story 68. I joined the military for what was supposed to be a 6-year commitment. I was a reservist. I had to go to basic training and a school to be a radio man. That took 8 months. And then I was released from active duty and required to attend meetings once a month and 2 weeks of duty in the summer. I found out that a reservist could only spend 2 years total on active duty. I stopped attending the meetings. That was not acceptable to the United States Coast Guard, so they ordered me to active duty aboard a cutter based in New York City, which was enjoyable. After 16 months, they gave me an honorable discharge. I actually spent 2 years and 8 months in the Coast Guard instead of 6 years. It worked out well. Story 69. A former employer outsourced all web development. When checking out, you could change the price of your cart using Google Chrome developer tools and submit the order with the new price. When you submitted, the user interface read the value and sent it to the server. I saved a lot of money on cookies. Story 70. In high school civics class, the teacher asked current events questions and, at the end, a couple of today in history questions. I discovered he took those questions from the local newspaper every day. I memorized the answers and got them all right. I earned tons of bonus points and everyone thought I was a history buff. Story 71. I called home person to person when I got to college to let them know I was safe. I am old. Story 72. GameStop had a 10-day return policy for used games. My college roommate and I would buy them, finish them, and return them. Essentially, we rented games for free. We did this for years until the company became aware and began marking receipts and keeping records. Story 73. In the 1990s and the early 2000s, many young people had prepaid phones. To save money, they used special service numbers where the person called would pay for the call when they accepted it. Because the calling number was unknown to the receiver, callers had a few seconds to state their name so the receiver would know who was calling. In practice, it was used like this. This is a call from Meet Me at the bar at 6. Johnny, do you want to accept this call and pay for it? Then hold the line. No one had to pay this way. Keep the message short. Story 74. A friend discovered that you could post your Peloton referral code on a coupon website. People would buy Peloton products, use your code to get a discount, and you would accumulate hundreds of dollars in credit to buy Peloton apparel. Story 75. This is a well-known trick. Many places will not let you cancel reservations after a certain period, usually 48 hours before the arrival date. Hotels are notoriously strict about this, and it is worse if you booked through a third-party website such as Kayak or Travelocity. Often, rescheduling your reservation carries no fee and can be done without difficulty. If you need to cancel but are past the window to call the hotel or booking agency, reschedule the reservation for another week or month, then call the next day to cancel and request a refund. The booking will now be far enough in the future to fall under their cancellation policy, so they usually cannot deny the refund. This has worked for me even with third-party sites which I no longer use. Story 76. In high school, I had a physics test, and we were allowed to use the internet on our laptops for the test. We were told beforehand to still study because all the answers were in the textbook. During my free period, I searched for a site that was not blocked by the school's firewall where I could create a website. Once I found one, I went home, used the compact disc from my physics textbook, uploaded it to my computer, and built a website containing the diagrams and information I needed. During the test, the teacher monitored our screens. After class, he pulled me aside. He said he had considered preventing me from using the site but admired my initiative. He advised me to remove the material to avoid copyright trouble and said that next year he would make sure others were not allowed to do the same. Story 77. I work kitchen shifts at my restaurant to cover the taxes on the tips I earn from working the front of the house. I always receive a paycheck and do not owe thousands in taxes. Story 78. I once took advantage of a small loophole. The airport car park was switching its ticketing system to a modern license plate recognition system. During the several-week rollout, parking was not charged and the airport advertised both short-term and long-term parking. Short-term parking was free for the first hour for people picking up passengers and is very close to the terminal. I parked for a week directly across from the arrivals exit for free. It was a small win, and I do not think many, if any, thought to do it. Story 79. It was not a big loophole, but my school's dress code is strict. Knee-high socks are not allowed, so I wore leg warmers and the school could not do anything. Story 80. The statute of limitations has long passed, so I can tell you about a few shady as well as legal things I have done. You do not have to get Amazon Prime if you know somebody who already has it and is willing to provide you with their account credentials. You log in as them and add your address and payment card information to their account. Whenever you want to buy something, log into their account, choose your card and your address for delivery, and you get the same day or next day delivery, as well as all the other perks that come with a Prime account. Watch a few Prime movies or listen to music at off hours so the real account holder does not have issues logging into their account. Anytime I logged into that account, Amazon automatically picked my card and address for the purchase without my having to do anything. I frequented bulletin board systems in the late 1970s and collected text files that told about hacks, workarounds, and cheats. One of the files I downloaded was about a chocolate brown change machine that had the word change in large white friendly letters at an angle across its face. I had never seen this specific machine in my life up to that point, and I used to practically live at video game parlors in my early teens. According to the bulletin board system's text file, this machine was different from all the other change machines. It accepted bills on a retractable thick glass tray where you placed the bill widthwise on the tray. Etched into the glass was a stylish drawing of a dollar bill, and the glass was illuminated. It looked pretty cool. The thing that made this machine special was a flaw in how it scanned the bills. If you cut a V-notch in the lower left corner at a specific angle and distance from the corner of the bill, the machine would scan the bill, dispense 4 quarters, and then reject the bill as damaged and eject the tray with the bill. Free money. I joined the United States Navy in the 1980s and was eventually stationed on an aircraft carrier out of San Diego. There was a Blockbuster Video in Imperial Beach, and nearby was a 24-hour coin-operated laundry. I would drive to Blockbuster Video to rent some movies a few times a month. One time, I decided to bring along some laundry before going to Blockbuster Video and stopped at that 24-hour coin-operated laundry. Back then, video camera surveillance systems were expensive and relatively rare. This place did not have any. As soon as I laid eyes on that change machine, the memory of that file was instantly front and center in my mind. I was in my early 20s and had never seen one of these before. I had only read about it years prior. I was a data hoarder even back then, and buried on one of my floppy disks from my teen years was that text file with the exact directions on how to trip the flaw. The next 3-day weekend, I drove home almost 500 miles one way to see family and friends and to get that file. I followed the directions exactly and one night drove down there at about 11:30 p.m. just to test it on a crisp new dollar bill. It worked on the first try. I went to Blockbuster Video and rented a movie I wanted to see afterward. Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. Moderation is the key over time. If I milked it too much or told anyone else about this, game over. That machine would have been swapped for a newer model. I kept that special dollar bill in a number 10 envelope in the glove box beneath whatever else was in there. Absolutely no more than twice a month, I would drop in, pull $2 to $4, and walk out. That paid for my Blockbuster Video rentals. If there were too many people in the laundry or someone was sitting too close to or facing the machine, I would pass, put in a regular dollar, get 4 quarters, and leave. I am sure that particular machine was removed from service over time because this knowledge had been out there since the late 1970s. Finding one still in service well into the mid-1980s was a rare treat. Today, forget about it. There are video cameras everywhere. The Google Foo is strong with this one. Although the text file stated it would not work on tray style changers, it did, and I did not need to crumple up the bill. There once was a piece of free open-source software for using multiple computers that could share one mouse and keyboard across all of them. The developer announced that after version 1.50, it was going to become a commercial product, and the price was pretty steep. It was a big slap in the face to all the other people who had contributed to the project in the first place. They did offer a 30-day trial for new users. One day after that free-to-paid version number was met, I went to the website and noticed the word trial in the download address line for the trial edition. Things that make you go, I downloaded the trial edition and on a hunch changed the word trial to paid in the URL and hit enter. A file with a slightly different file name downloaded, and it was a slightly different file size too. It was easy to save my configuration file, remove the older free edition, load the new paid edition, and load my older configuration file. Back in business in less than 5 minutes. The person who wrote this program was a good programmer but not good at running a commercial website with a shopping cart. With the paid edition, the 30-day limitation was gone and it auto-updated itself when a new edition was released. I ran that software for years until I switched over to Barrier, an open-source fork of the previous program. Lots of older Microsoft software could accept a product key that was all the same number. In 1996, I was invited to be a beta tester for Microsoft Office 97, and when I received a recordable compact disc, CDR, from Microsoft, there was a note included that told me to use a product key of all zeros or all sevens. Once Office 97 was commercially available, Microsoft sent me a free copy of Office 97 Professional, which had a value of about $350 at the time. When installing it, on a hunch I entered all sevens as the product key and it accepted it. The suite installed and worked fine. I did not need to use the legitimate product key that came with it. They apparently forgot to remove that bit of programming code from the release to manufacturing gold copy. 10 years ago, in 2015, I had a customer who had just moved here and all her possessions were still inside a moving truck that was somewhere halfway across the country. She had her frigging Office 97 installed disk in the laptop's digital versatile disk drive, but did not have the jewel case it came in, which had her product key on it. That was in a cardboard box on the moving truck, slowly driving its way to her new house. She needed Office 97 installed and working for a job she was starting in 2 days. She was opening ancient company business data files to do whatever with them. Not my monkey, not my circus. I remembered what I did in 1996 and gave it a try. It activated and installed. She looked at me like I was some strange kind of computer wizard. Whatever. She was happy and I got paid. Being in the military gets you used to doing the same routines daily. Routine and repetitive to the point that you do things automatically. I used to roll higher interest earnings at a bank by taking advantage of how slow the Navy would deposit checks. They only did it once a week. Every day, close to quitting time, I would cash a check at the disbursing office on the ship for a few $100s. That day, on the drive home, I deposited that same money into my checking account at an automated teller machine I was driving past anyway. If I maintained a balance above a certain number, it was an interest-bearing account. I was already above that threshold, but 5 days a week I added $200 every day, $1,000 a week. That money earned me more interest in that account. The Navy collected all the checks they had cashed for everybody on the ship that week and then deposited them on a Friday. It took a few days for them to clear while all that extra money was in my account earning interest. Monday through Friday, rinse and repeat. I did this for years and earned interest doing it. It was no big deal to cash a check and pull into an automated teller machine to deposit on the way home. I never bounced a check because the money was always there to cover the checks. I forget the exact amount it earned over the years, but it was nothing to sneeze at for only about 30 to 45 minutes of my time each week. I know it paid for all the Christmas gifts every year or an emergency car repair bill if I had one. Radio Shack used to give you one free battery every month if you had a Battery of the Month card. Naturally, you hit up all the Radio Shack stores you could get to on a bus route or by bike and collect as many Battery of the Month cards as you could. I had a thick stack. The manager of one store liked me, and when they had their scheduled delivery, sometimes they had too many batteries left over from the last delivery that they did not sell and it took up too much room, so he would give me unopened cases of batteries if I wanted them. I never needed to buy batteries. They were cheap batteries, but they were still free. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.